In the hustle of life, with all its noise and busyness, it's important to take time to be still, to call our senses into a quiet space that renews our bodies and opens our minds. In this holy space of peace, we speak softly the names of those for whom we pray this morning, believing and knowing that they are cared for and about by a loving Creator. They are heard, they are loved, they are blessed. And a deeper peace calls us as our worldly concerns are set aside, even for just a moment, and we enter the eternal moment that is beyond our human understanding and experience. Home is a word that for most people describes not only a building, but a person, a heart, a world where we can find comfort and rest. Home feels welcoming, embracing, soothing, and serene. It's good to be home, whether near or far. Our church feels like home to those who attend, whether it be in person or online. The cadence of the music, the soothing prayers, familiar faces, our Unity 5 principles. Our church, then, is far more than a structure. Structures come and go. They change. They get remodeled. But the heart of our home is always with us because we are together. And in this space, in silent communion, we have a special connection to the greater home in which we all dwell. One presence, one power draws us closer, welcoming our hearts into its loving embrace. Let us sit quietly in the heart that calls us home right here and right now. Peace softly enters our hearts, renewing our spirits, opening our mind to a greater world in which we live. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Amen. Well, it's true. We barely had made it home. I arrived yesterday afternoon, and I always think about how we put these videos up on YouTube, and somebody might 6 months from now key into it and go, what is she talking about? So to let those of you who will watch this in the future know, we have been in Sicily and Italy from November the 3rd to Saturday, which was the 16th. And I arrived home yesterday at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever time zone that was in. And, the struggle to get back, to stay awake and get back into the normal routine is to me, the most critical thing. People say, how do you get over jet lag? Well, when you go someplace, you get off the plane, you pick up your luggage, you get on the bus, and you're going. You get over jet lag pretty quick. But when we come home, we do this, I'm going to relax thing. And then jet lag seems to go on for days. So I figured out early in the game that the first thing you have to do is get off the plane, get your luggage, start your laundry, balance your checkbook, and just get back into the routine. So although today is a little bit, shall we say, off-center day because I'm still 6 hours ahead of where I currently am, I'm already getting ready for the week coming up. It's both comforting and comfortable to be home. There is something about being in our own place. I miss my pillow. I miss my shower and the routine things of my life, where things are, and the orientation I have to the world around me. Well, if that's true, then I'm so glad to be home. Why is it that I love to travel so much? It's kind of interesting because people say to me, well, Marianne, you always go overseas. Why don't you travel in your own country? Well, I was very grateful and very blessed that my parents, when we were very young, decided that Christmas was never going to be a big event for us. We were not going to get lots of presents that we were going to forget, that we were going to make plans. We would get one gift. Each of us got one gift. There were 5 kids, so that was a lot of gifts. And that we would plan a trip for the year. So often we had a camping trailer, and not one of those fancy glamping things, one of those fold up trailers. And we went all over this country. And I'm only a few states short of getting to all 50 of them that I need to get on my bucket list and get to. So I've seen a lot of our country, and it's always in flux, it's always in change. It'd be nice to see it again. But in 1997, I took my first international trip, and it was a combined trip to Israel and Egypt. And I was excited about going, but it's like, hey, I've been to the United States. What's there to see over there? Well, the first thing that happened for me was the incredible, what I call the shock of antiquities. To look at a building and realize that nothing in our country is that old. I mean, when you look at something in our country that's maybe 300 years old, we go, wow, that's really old. And then you stand in front of the temple in Luxor that's 3,000 years old. It makes a different impact somehow when you stand there underneath the canopy of this massive structure. There was a shock of cultures. Well, I knew Middle Eastern people, I'd had Middle Eastern food, but it's not the same as going there, literally, physically going there and being surrounded in an unfamiliar culture and kind of trying to navigate where you are and what you're thinking and how people around you are responding. And the third shock that just really shook me and got me bit by the travel bug was what I call the shock of history. So that first trip, like I said, we went to Israel, and here I am standing on the Temple Mount, the place where Jesus came and tipped over the tables, where the second temple of Jerusalem was built, and the sense of it's so different than seeing it in a picture. I've seen lots of pictures. My Bible has pictures in it. Okay, I could see that picture. But to stand there was earth-shaking to me. And from that point on, I began to travel with a tremendous passion to see, to explore, but more than that, to experience something. So as I've gone on through the years, my passion, my drive for travel is, interestingly enough, changing in a little bit of ways. What I realized this time more than any time before is when you travel, it expands your sense of home. I never really thought about that before, but I realize how comfortable I am in my home, in my city, in my state, in my country. And I understand when I travel around, like say in the United States, I still have a sense and a feeling of the United States. I go to another state, I visit my dad in Ohio, and I go, oh, I'm in Ohio, but I still know I'm in the United States. I still can read all the street signs. I still can tell how to put the ATM card in the right way, and all of the things that make our own country very familiar to us. So my sense of home expands from my house to my city, to my state, to my country. Well, some years ago, in 2007, I had the opportunity to go to Turkey and also to Alaska. So in March of 2007, I went to Turkey for the first time ever. I got off the plane and I thought, wow, this really feels familiar. I had never been to Turkey before. I'd always wanted to go to Constantinople. I hated when they changed the name of it. I always wanted to go to Constantinople. Here I was in the airport in Istanbul. And it seemed very familiar to me. We got out onto the street and they said, which way are we supposed to? Oh, to the left, we get on that, but do this. And I said, have you been here before? Never, never. But somehow the ground of being felt so comfortable, familiar. 4 months later was my parents' 60th wedding anniversary, and for the big celebration, we all went on a cruise to Alaska. And I got off the plane in Alaska at Fairbanks because we did part of a land tour and part of a sea tour. I was very uncomfortable. It had a very strange feeling. It had a sense of kind of cowboys and Indians. It says a kind of a rawness to the land and to the vibration. Now, what's so interesting about this to me is that I'd never been to Turkey. I don't speak the language. I had never had any familiarity with that ground, if you will. Yet when I went to a place that was part of my own country, that had sort of the look and feel of the United States, I was very disoriented. So what happens when we travel is this sense of incredible disorientation. And as a result of that, it's what I call we begin to question and lose our brave a little bit. Did you ever lose your brave? You know, think travel makes me rely on my inner senses more. You know, when you can't read a street sign, when you can't find somebody that you is familiar to you, it gets very disorienting very quickly. And you really have to say to yourself, am I in danger or am I just lost and therefore scared? Because when I'm in danger, we know what that feels like when we're in familiar territory. Say we go to the other side of town, whatever other side of town that is. We go, ooh, I probably shouldn't be here. I'm sensing danger. But we already know how to get out of it, so to speak. It's like, okay, I made a wrong turn. I have to do this, get my GPS. But when we go internationally, we don't know when we've stepped there. So we have to really begin to refine, I'm going to call it, our inner sense of wisdom and knowledge. We have to be able to quell down our panic, which is our fear response, because this was so interesting. You can get lost because you're afraid. Not because you're lost, but because you can't see. So in other words, we were in Beijing in Tiananmen Square, which is massive, and lots of people are there. And I leaned one way to take a photo, and when I came back up right, I thought, oh, I don't see our group. I really don't see our group in a sea of people. And I felt that rise of panic, like, oh my God, I barely know where I am. I don't speak the language. I don't even know who I'm looking for or what I'm looking for. Oh my God. And I was unable to see. Excuse me. And I had to calm myself down. And I had to say to myself, take a breath, peace, peace. And when I opened my eyes, I could see Patrick. He was a little taller than most of them. And I thought he was a lot farther away than I had anticipated. They had moved from when I stopped, but I was able to find my way. And that was a very interesting learning lesson for me because I didn't realize, I thought I saw him. But because I was so scared and so panicked, I could not see. Had to come into peace. It expands my sense not only of home and where I am in the world and how comfortable I am in the world, but also this sense of, would I be okay if something happened that would take me someplace else? There used to be a, man on the street kind of thing. And he would ask people, if you had all the money in the world, where would you like to go? And people would say, oh, Paris or Rome or anything. And then he said, okay, if I give you $1,000,000, would you go? But you have to go in the next 24 hours. And most people are like, well, thanks anyway, but no, very few people would. And that always intrigued me because I wanted to have the sense that I would go. But this is interesting. Remember, we're expanding our sense of home. There are places I would jump on a plane, you give me the ticket, I'm gone, even tomorrow morning. But then there are places where I've not been there before, so I'm not so sure I'm so comfortable going. Say, for example, Australia. Never been there, want to go there, but would I just, on the spur of the moment, go? I'd have to think about that because it expands and opens up this idea of my comfort zone of what is home and comfortable to me, as opposed to maybe London or Paris or Rome that we just came back from. Expanding my sense of home. I think this is so critical for our young people because let's be real. When I was young and in high school days, you didn't travel overseas. So it's incumbent upon our young people to have an expanded sense of global home, not just our city, our state, our country. Not only an expanded sense of home, but also an expanded sense of humanity. When we travel, we come face to face with new customs, new ways, new food. And you can read about it or you watch a movie about it, but it's not the same thing. In the Mediterranean world, especially because it's a warmer climate, people eat out a lot. And I'm not talking about in their backyard with maybe their family, the dog, and a few friends. No, the streets are lined with tables. So several times in Sicily, as we were walking around in the evening, the streets are all lit up. The shops are open, even like 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, because everybody's out. Everybody's enjoying dinner. Everybody's enjoying community. And in the northern climes, like in England and Scotland, it's the pub. The pub isn't a bar. It is, yes, it's where you get a drink, but it's also where you have food and fellowship. You meet friends. It's open to all people, and you stay there for an extended period of time. We in the United States live in more smaller circles, if you will, more isolated with simply family and friends. It's interesting to see the patterns and the rituals of that different living because we never had dinner before 7 o'clock at night. Now, usually 7 o'clock at night, my dishes are done, the dishwasher's running, I'm in bed. It's a whole different world than we are used to. Also, not only a sense of the people who live there, but also the sense of how those people view us. This is most interesting too, because of course we were gone over a presidential election. And you ever say the phrase, I can talk bad about my brother, but you can't talk bad about my brother? Was kind of that same thing. I can talk bad about my country, but you can't talk bad about my country. And so listening to people talk about the presidential election, listening to the commentary from BBC and all that kind of stuff was very different because I think just like ourselves personally, we have a sense of our country and we know it's not perfect, but we'd like to think it's perfect and we'd like to think other people think it's perfect too. And when they don't think that, it's like, you're very insensitive to us Americans. And yet they're saying, don't say anything about our country then. Don't come to Italy and say, what's the matter with these Italians? You see, where it's kind of that mirror image where what we give out, we get back. So the sense of being in someone else's world and seeing it through their eyes, both our own world and their world, is again, it's awakening, it's opening. And remember a couple months back, and I said this whole thing I'm working on, this whole word unfolding. And here we are again. It's another unfolding of how I see myself and how I see my world and all of the people in it. Well, it was not only, this time especially, the people that in the countries that we visited, but also this time our group, we did a partnership. So the group we partnered with was a Catholic group from Connecticut, and wonderful people but they were new to us. Okay. We didn't know these people, so we met at JFK, got on the plane together, got on the bus together, and how we struggled to kind of get the two groups to work together, because this group knew this group and this group knew this group, and it was hard to bridge over those gaps until yesterday when we left at the airport. It was really cute. They were singing, the Connecticut group was over here singing Arrivederci to all of us as we were coming back to Oklahoma. To watch people who've never internationally traveled before, their fear of the unknown, their need to control. Oh my gosh, those people would drive me crazy, because they would want to know over and over, what time are we supposed to meet the bus? What time are we supposed to do this? Are we going to stop for lunch? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? And the early years of being a tour leader, I would get really anxious about that, really annoyed. When I come to realize what it was is they feel out of control. They're not in their comfort zone of home and friends. They're out of that comfort zone. And when we are out of that comfort zone, we need to feel in control to feel safe. So it helped me understand what it means to feel safe in a larger world, not just in our own world, but in a large world. Another thing I witnessed that I had not witnessed before was the caring for spouses. On the plane flight, there was a gentleman who was he was a big guy, and his seat was not next to his wife, and he was very upset. He was very agitated about it and very loud about it. Well, good luck for me. Guess where they landed? Right next to me as we swapped seats, trying to get it all straightened around for him. And my first response was, that was just kind of rude, and it really wasn't all that necessary. She was still on the same plane, only 2 seats away. What was the big deal? Until I began to listen to their conversation a little bit, and he was overcompensating. Something wasn't quite right. And I saw that this woman was beginning to experience some of the signs of dementia. And she wasn't the only one on this trip. And the spouse sort of trying to overcompensate to protect and make sure that spouse was safe. We become insensitive to other people's cultures, and we don't realize, because we do live in our world, how important it is to unfold and expand and get out of, even just to get out of Brownsville, to go to Harlingen, to go to Austin, to go to Houston. I mean, we're not even talking international, to become more sensitive to the pace and the heartbeat of other cultures that are not like our own, and how other cultures view our culture as an invasion. For example, McDonald's. They want it. It's not to say that McDonald's isn't busy in Rome. It most assuredly is. But at the same time, they struggle with recognizing how it's robbing their culture of something that's uniquely theirs for the American version. You know, one of the most interesting things that happened to us, and there were many, many stories to tell over the course of time, is that because we did go with a Catholic group, we had a papal audience. And I, quite frankly, had not really any idea what a papal audience would be like. I thought that the Pope would come out on the balcony and he would bless us and he would kind of go back in or say a word or two. I had no idea. Well, that morning, Wednesday, I think it was the 13th, we had an actual invitation. The invitation meant we had a chair to see the papal audience, which was out in St. Peter's Square, which is all open. It was cold that morning, but it was a bright day. It was a beautiful day, actually. And there was bands playing, which was most fascinating. And they were playing tunes from various countries that we would recognize. And so the people would cheer. And then they came on the intercom and said, we welcome the people from United States and welcome the people from Singapore and all these groups and then we all cheered. And then the Pope comes out. And because it was a nice day, he was out in the Pope Mobile. And they had laid a track out for him so that as he wound around the audience and the people, I mean, we were only 3 people away from him, not very far at all. We had a good, clean view of him, and he was waving and smiling. And then he went up to the platform area and gave an address. The address was most interesting because it was like in short paragraphs, like maybe 2 minutes and 2 minutes and 2 minutes. And then it was translated into 3 different languages or 4 different languages. But at the very end, something very interesting happened. And it still touches me to tell you about it. He put his papers aside. Now, we're watching him on a big screens, TVs. He leaned forward and he's speaking in Italian, so we don't know what he's saying, but he changes his cadence. It gets low, it gets intense. He's leaning forward, his body language. And the only 2 words I recognized that he said was Israel and Palestine. And I knew in that moment he was begging the world to cease that war. And I felt it, not just heard it, I experienced it viscerally. And even though I didn't know what he said, I knew what he said. And the people got very, very quiet. And we all understood at a deep level what he was trying to say. Later on that night, we were having dinner, and I said, did anybody else, was that I just being weird or whatever? And they said, no, it was really obvious. He was intentional in speaking his heart truth to all of us. You know, I used to say that I traveled to go and see things, to see them for myself. But now I'm wondering, as the years go on, if travel isn't the opportunity to see myself, a kind of system check. Am I as compassionate as I think I am? Am I as flexible? Do I need to be in control? Do I need to fix everyone? You know, as I live in my nice little cocoon world, I think I'm all of those things. But when I go outside of that world, when I encounter people and cultures that are different than my own, when I encounter people from my own country who are different than the people I already know, can I still say I'm compassionate? Can I still say I'm flexible? Can I still say I'm okay with that as things are rolling along and unfolding? Can I still say I can hear the voice of spirit speaking to me? And that I'm not apart from it. I am a part of it. I truly hope that you all will see, whether or not you ever travel internationally, that the world you live in is a wonderful world. It's a container, it's a cocoon that we've all created, and it's a good thing. But it's also a good thing to every now and then challenge ourselves to break it open and break it open and break it open so that we can become more sensitive to the cries of the world that is our home of humanity, and to also listen for the heart of those who suffer unparalleled like we have never known. That to me is the beauty of the travel experiences that I come back with. Yes, I saw lots of things. Yes, I ate lots of gelato and pasta and wine and everything else. And there's all that fun and good stuff. But in the end, I hope that this adventure, as well as all the other adventures, makes me a better, richer, and more well-rounded person. Thank you for joining me on our Facebook page. And truly, I'm grateful to be home. Thank you very much. God bless.